and welcome to tonight's Lioness Lifestyle Live. Please let me know if you guys can hear me. Hopefully you can. Tonight is going to be just me and our guest, as my two co-hosts had other things going on tonight, but I think it'll be okay. Don't go away. Stick around. Our guest is amazing. This is a show where we just share different stories, different perspectives on how diet can affect your healing journey and get you to your health goals. So let's see if I can hit all the buttons that I've never hit before. I'll tell you one thing, we're not going to be spinning the meaty wheel, but let's see here. Let's go for the roar of the week. Okay, thanks for another great video. I caught the replay. Yvette, thank you for coming on over and for commenting. If you would like to be next week's roar of the week, please comment after the video posts in the comment section, as it doesn't count in the chat section. Just doesn't sound the same without Cristie, right? All right, now I'm going to bring in our guest, I think. Oh, wait, just kidding. Hold on. Uh-oh. Sorry. We knew something funky was going to happen. Let's see here. That's my husband. Oh, I wonder if we have a guest intro. Hold on. Yes, we do. And I know how to hit the button. Christina, welcome. Thank you so much for coming to our show today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I am so sorry that our other two hosts couldn't be here. They really wanted to be, and they were like, what do we do? And I was like, it's going to be okay for this one episode. So I'm so sorry that they're missing you. I was wondering if you could tell us a little story about your background and how you got to where you are today. And you go ahead and just tell us all about it.
Oh, wow. I feel like that's a lot. The very, very broad brush there. But so my name is Christina. I'm a naturopath. I've been a naturopath, nutritionist, and herbalist for probably the last 8 years, nearly 10 years. Time creeps up on you and you think that it's only been a short time when it's actually been a long time. And so I've worked in the space of nutritional health for a good, 15 years of my life. I've been through all the things. Like, I did the nutritional training. I went to university and did my, degrees and so on in nutritional medicine. So I've had all that sort of background and knowledge about, all the different vitamins and where to get them from and, how we need fiber and blah, blah, blah. Like, I've had all of that training. And then COVID hit, and that was a really busy time for me because I had a lot of patients that I was working with all around the world, and I was flat chat busy, and it was the time when I just got to eat whatever somebody would bring me. And lo and behold, I started to get not so well, and I started to take day naps. That was the thing for me that I was like, something's going on here, because I'm usually a pretty high energy person and I'm needing day naps. So something's not quite right. And so I checked my blood glucose because I'd, had gestational diabetes when I was pregnant. So I kind of had that in the back of my mind that maybe something was going on there. And lo and behold, my fasting blood glucose was, so in Australian terms, it was 21.1 or 21.2. In American terms, that's over the 300 mark. And so it was pretty high. And I should have at that point maybe gone to a hospital and gone down that pathway. But knowing all that I knew, I went, I don't want to do that. I'm going to need to do something drastic to correct this situation as quickly as I possibly could. And the way that I had known to do that was with meat. And that's what I'd done with my gestational diabetes, was I predominantly ate meat with a little bit of veggies on the side, and that managed my blood glucose during those pregnancies. And so I went, I think I need to go a little bit stricter. And I'd been hearing about carnivore. It was kind of on my peripheral. I'd done carnivore, but not in those terms with some of my patients. And so I just ripped the Band-Aid off. I went, right, that's it, I'm doing carnivore. And that was 3 years ago. So that was 921 days ago that I made that decision. Because I have, as a bit of a scientist at heart, I've been tracking my own progress during that time, checking things like blood glucose and ketones and blood pressure and weight and all of that type of stuff to see what happens for me, and that might actually also be happening for other women as well. And so that was the start of the journey of losing nearly 100 pounds so far, and that is continuing. And The real goal for me, though, is resolving insulin resistance or hyperinsulinemia, which a lot of us have. And there's this misunderstanding sort of in the carnivore world that once you get rid of carbs, that you're just going to go into ketosis. And for a lot of women, that's actually not the truth. And they might not get that energy surge that other people are saying that they're getting because they don't have a primary energy source. If they're not able to pull from fat as an energy source and jump into ketosis because they've got too much insulin, then they're not going to have a primary energy source because they're not eating glucose, they're not pulling fat from their bodies. And so the only other alternatives is to start pulling protein from their body or from what they're actually eating. And so that for me has been a big part of my journey over the last couple of years, is really kind of figuring out that part of it and that piece of it. And how do we reset the metabolic system and get it working again? But that's kind of the big broad brush strokes of what I've been doing over the last 3 years. One of the key things there for me is I've had lots and lots of benefits, one of which is my hair has regrown. So, my hair was falling out in clumpfuls, and then I had to cut my hair short because I had all this really thin hair down the bottom and then really thick hair that was coming through. I no longer need to wear glasses, so I don't have to wear glasses to read and to do my daily activities anymore, which was something I never anticipated would happen. Along with the weight loss and along with, my insulin levels coming down and all sorts of other great benefits. There was lots of other little things that I didn't actually even consider would be benefits, like incontinence. So I'd had bladder surgery from my last pregnancy and I had a leak from that. I never ever thought that I would be able to resolve that issue. And on Carnivore, I don't have that issue anymore. And so there's lots of little benefits that kind of are also there along with some of those bigger ones. So there's a little bit about me.
Amazing. So losing 100 pounds, how has your thyroid been?
Yeah, so my thyroid is really great. I have checked my bloods more recently, every 6 months at least. And occasionally, like on my own YouTube channel, I'll go through, here's my bloods, here's what all this means, here's the information that I want to take away from it. But the one thing that I will tell my female patients particularly is you must eat breakfast. It doesn't have to be a big bowl of something, especially if you've got a thyroid problem. If you don't have a thyroid problem, do what you like. But if you have a thyroid problem, a bite or two of food in the morning just gives your body that message that you're safe, that you're not in a famine, that you're not in a war. And so it doesn't need to ration out your resources. And I don't care if you eat for the rest of the day. You can fast for the rest of the day if you want to. But I can guarantee if you eat that one bite or two bites in the morning, your thyroid will start to change because it gets out of the I'm in danger mode and moves into the I'm in safe mode. And it can let go of resources then, and it can allow you to lose weight more easily. It can allow your energy levels to come back, and it can allow you to detoxify more efficiently.
Where are you located?
So I'm in Australia. I'm currently at the library, which is what you guys will see behind me. But yes, I'm in Australia, but I work in multiple different countries.
Okay. And when you went to nutrition school, did they teach you things that you disagree with now? Like what?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, actually, this is a really interesting thing because one of the things that they taught me was fiber, but they didn't teach it to the completion. So, for example, that myth still goes around today that you need fiber in order for your gut to work, but also for your gut to be able to build good, healthy microbes. But what they miss in that information is the reason that fiber helps with building those microbes is because it creates a release of butyrate. And butyrate is actually what is the thing that feeds those microbes, not the actual fiber itself. It's just that the fiber creates the butyrate. Well, we make our own butyrate when we're into ketosis. And so we can actually feed those microbes without ever eating fiber by just making sure that we're getting into ketosis. Even if we're only doing it sporadically, we're still going to feed those healthy microbes. And so when I say that they taught me stuff that I don't agree with now, some of it is because there wasn't a completion of the science or a taking it all the way to the end result. And some of it was the limitations of science. So, for example, we're all taught that you need to have vitamin C in order for your immune system to function because it's an electron donator. So it donates to our immune cells so that they've got energy to keep doing their job. But we are taught in that nutritional space that vitamin C can only come from fresh fruit and vegetables, when actually what we know now is that we can get two types of vitamin C. We've got non-heat treated vitamin C, or non-heat damaged vitamin C, and then we have heat damaged vitamin C. So the heat damaged vitamin C is what we're going to get in our vegetables and our fruit, but our non-heat damaged vitamin C is naturally found in all animal products. It's particularly high in things like liver. And so you can still get that vitamin C, so you don't have to get scurvy, but it's coming from those animal products. And we just didn't know because nobody looked. So there was an assumption, and the science was based on this assumption rather than the actual truth of the matter. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is I'm constantly reminding fellow practitioners, because one of my roles is to help mentor new practitioners that are coming through. And I have a couple of practitioners that like hang out on my Facebook page and things like that. And every so often they'll pop their heads up and they'll go, but what about this? Which is a great opportunity for me to explain a little bit more of things to them. But one of the things that I'm constantly reminding them is their basic anatomy and physiology lessons, which is that you can make glucose out of protein, you can make it out of fat. So therefore, it's not an essential nutrient, where you can't make fat for yourself, you can't make protein for yourself. You have to consume those in order to be able to have those things going on. But you can make glucose. And so it no longer actually fits into that essential nutrient category that we would have been told previously. So part of it is reminding them of their old anatomy and physiology, and part of it is actually pushing them further along to here's where the end point actually is a little bit more defined.
So were you a naturopath before a carnivore?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
And like, mhm.
well, so I actually first started as a GAPS practitioner. So gut and psychology syndrome was the space that I was in. And then I finished my qualifications as a naturopath, and then, moved on later into carnivore. But I'd always been a meat heavy sort of practitioner. So I always knew that animal products were a major component of the healing journey, but I hadn't got to the point of that it was the whole story almost. And I still don't necessarily think it has to be completely the whole story. I think it predominantly is, but there are a few people who can get away with it. I'll put it in that way instead of saying that they have to. I'll say they can get away with doing a little bit more than other people can that are not animal products.
I always try to think of our ancestors. So I've been carnivore for almost 2.5 years. But there's this evolution that kind of happens with your brain as you're a carnivore. And my next phase is, is there ever a society that didn't have access to plant at one time during the year? So to me, I wonder if there would be a section of the year where you're ketovore, like you're still mostly eating meat. You're probably gouging yourselves on plants, even though the plants were different. They weren't the same as they are today, but your taste buds were different too. So you still probably thought they were just so amazing and you would harvest everything you could. But then you'd have there's absolutely, unless you were really close to the equator, there had to have been times in the year on just about every single population where the only thing you ate was meat.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you
And
think about seasonal plants?
so here's the thing. If I was going to eat plants, there's a number of preferences that I would have. One of which is I'm absolutely a carb food addict. So an avocado quickly turns into a chocolate bar, or a cake, right? It's a gateway drug for me. So for me, there are no-go zones at this point, because I just don't have the capacity to control or modify or moderate those things. So for me, it's a no-go. But for people who can moderate and they were maybe going to eat some of those plants, my provisos would be, do you grow it yourself? Is it on a tree that's in your backyard that you can actually witness it turning to that point of ripeness, pick it and eat it at that point? That would be my best ideal way of actually consuming plant products. Or, maybe you've got where we live in the country here, we've got lots of blackberries, and you can see the blackberries are, they have their natural season and you can pick them when they're ripe. If you pick them any other time, they're disgusting. So you only really pick them when they're ripe. But the problem is that I wouldn't go to the point of buying vegetables and stuff from the supermarket, because there's so much manipulation in that food system there. And, fruit is often picked well before it's actually ripened. It's put into a storage unit, kept there on sort of hold until, we get to the place where we're ready to sell it. And then we put it in a gas chamber and we gas it so that it ripens up. And we've added to the toxic load of that fruit, rather than if you've got an apple tree in your backyard and that tree is healthy and well, so it's organic, it's like healthy and well, it's got everything that it needs. What you'll see is, if you observe the birds and the bees and the other insects around, is that they won't touch that fruit unless there's no other food around and they're starving. They won't touch it until the plant switches, until it shifts from its growth season to its ripen season. And when it's ripe, now it's all game on. It's competition on for being able to get that fruit. And so that tells me that they know stuff that we have kind of lost in that sort of, food processing that we have been in this industrialized age. And if you watch them, you will know when the fruit has reduced its actual toxic load and is now at least a little bit safer to actually consume. And so if I was going to eat plants, it would be, can I grow it myself? Can I watch it and harvest it at its natural time? And can I eat it as close to picking as possible? Those would be like the most ideal situations.
I wonder if the populations that are closer to the equator, that are naturally, like, I'm Finnish, so I think that's kind of the climate of Minnesota, which is where I live. So we would only have like one harvest season, but most populations would be closer to the equator, closer to the ocean, and could potentially have two harvest seasons. So they could, and then there's, preservation. So they could potentially have plants year round. But regardless, it isn't natural for me to be eating bananas year round. I live in Minnesota.
Well, it's certainly not natural to eat bananas where I am year round as well. We live in a cold climate environment, so bananas are in our tropical places of our country. But the other part of that is that naturally, for most, even within Australia, where we've got much hotter temperate climates, where you can grow things for longer periods, they also have a non-growing season. Like, it's when the hurricane season is happening. Like, there's no point planting during hurricane season, even if the weather is nice. You're going to lose your crop. And so even in those areas, what would have naturally happened is that everyone had what would have been called the lean month. And the lean months were the months where vegetation wasn't actually available to you, where you had to eat predominantly a keto-style carnivore diet to get through that sort of winter lean month season. It's really interesting. There's a book out there called Animal Vegetable Miracle. And it was a family in America who moved from Vegas to another part of the country that wanted to see how they would go if they only ate what they could grow or buy within like a certain radius of their town for a whole year. And what they learnt was some really amazing things, one of which was that, we have this idea that as soon as spring starts, we're going to have all these plants available to us. Well, actually, it takes until, nearly the third month of spring before anything's actually available to eat. It's usually rhubarb is predominantly the first like vegetable / fruity type thing that you could possibly eat after you come out of spring. And it's not really until you start to move into summer that those foods are actually available to you. So there's this really long elongated sort of period where we actually don't have access to, if it's stuff that we can grow or stuff that we can buy only locally, that we actually have access to a lot of those fruits and vegetables anyway. So there's this natural period where we would predominantly eat fat and meat. And if we look at some of the people who have still sort of carried that on, they've generally got reasonably healthy metabolic systems. But the thing is that we've moved so far away from our natural systems that we have to also do now a lot more work to get back to those natural systems within inside of us.
So what kind of tools as a naturopath do you use? Because you must use more than just diet, no?
Diet is my predominant thing that I use. And then I will use some herbs and I will use some supplements and sometimes some homeopathy as well to help people. And it just depends on what's going on in their physiology as to what they need. At this point in time, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm training to be a medical doctor, but I'm not yet there. So I certainly can't prescribe medication or any of those types of things. And so my perspective is, how do I get that out of food first? Like, let's say, for example, I want you to take a multivitamin. I'm going to get you to eat a can of sardines a couple of times a week because that's basically a multivitamin. And I'm going to look at the food first. Then I'm going to look at, do we need to add in some extra stuff because you've been so depleted for such a long period of time that we kind of need to catch you up a little bit to get you moving? Have you had organs removed? So if somebody's had their thyroid removed, for example, we're never going to be able to replace that thyroid. We just can't do it. And so there's always going to be a need for some medication for those types of people. And my perspective is understanding what are the damages of those medications and how do I minimize those for those clients, and utilizing natural therapies to be able to do that.
So when people come and they have the insulin resistance and you say, "Hey, have you heard of the carnivore diet?" How does that go with your patients? Like there must be different subsets of patients that respond differently.
Yeah, so I have people who come to me because they know I'm carnivore. And so those conversations are relatively easy in that space. They've already done the thinking. They're like, I just want to answer some questions and let me know if this is a good plan and give me some certainty that I'm on the right track and all of that type of stuff. But then I have another group of people who haven't heard anything about it. And my goal then is to take them on a journey. And I always present it in the space of, this is your life. You get to choose. I'm not coming to your house. I'm not making your food. I'm not going to be sitting over your shoulder actually telling you not to eat those things. You have to make the decisions yourself. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to present you with a couple of options of how to move forward. So, you know, for some people, we might do some hair analysis where we send some hair off to the lab and we get it tested against 600 different foods to see what are the most problematic foods for you. And that's often a bit of a stepping stone into them starting to transition to change their diet. Other people, it's, you know, let's go to keto to start with and then see how we go there. And then maybe let's jump into carnivore. And sometimes it's a transitional space where people need to grow and learn. Like, I think about it in my own regard. Like, it took me, you know, a good, 15 years of, you know, doing the GAPS diet and reducing, you know, we didn't eat potatoes and we didn't eat rice and we didn't eat bread. Like, you know, I did a lot of cutting out of foods that weren't necessarily beneficial before I got to that place of carnivore. So I was well versed in how to do it and what food looked like and, you know, feeling strange at the table because I was eating different to other people. So I recognize that for some people, that journey can be a little bit more challenging, might take time for them to do, because it took time for me to do. Like, I didn't go straight from like the SAD diet to straight into carnivore. I'd already made changes that, you know, had made me the weird person at the dinner table anyway. Like, that wasn't something new that I was eating something different from everyone else. And so these are all things that they need to learn, and giving them a bit of grace and letting them know it's a journey rather than a destination. And our goal is to get the best outcomes for you, which is going to look different to somebody else's journey in getting there.
What kind of improvements, like in labs and stuff, do you see when people switch to the carnivore diet?
Well, so it's a really interesting thing because you'll see some labs improve immediately and other labs kind of go in the opposite direction. And the challenge there is that what I see for a lot of people, for example, is they might jump over to carnivore and suddenly they've got elevated liver enzymes and they freak out because they're like, oh my gosh, my liver's doing terrible. It's like, no. What's happened is you've just removed all the toxic stuff from your diet. Now your liver's working really hard to get rid of all that stuff that it's backlogged and it's held onto. And so we've got to allow your body, it's going to go through some adjustment periods as it starts to do that transition. But generally, you'll see things like their blood glucose comes down reasonably quickly. Their blood pressure starts to come down reasonably quickly as well. You'll start to see some improvements in things like their immune health. You'll see things like their electrolyte balances tend to be a little bit better as well. There might be some tweaking that you need to do for a couple of people, but predominantly you're going to see these trends. And when people do, say, 3 months and then 6 months, by about 6 to 9 months, they'll see things like those liver markers will come back down, or their cholesterol might have risen and then it starts to come back down after that 6 sort of month period. And so part of my job is to actually hold them through that process, because their medical team is scaring them, telling them, oh my gosh, you're going to have a heart attack because your cholesterol is high, but not explaining to them like what cholesterol is. Like, when I look at a cholesterol panel, for example, I look at it from the perspective of, what are the triglycerides doing? Are they nice and low? Is our HDL good? Is that nice and high? And then that other cholesterol, the LDL, cholesterol. When I'm looking at that, I see that from 80% of that is made from your body. So your body knows for some reason right now you need some extra cholesterol. So if we just get rid of that, we're not serving the body. We're not listening to it. What we need to do is actually maybe ask the question of like, why is it knowing that we need more cholesterol right now? How can I help that more efficiently? So for example, if somebody's vitamin D levels are low, their cholesterol will often be high because cholesterol plus sunlight equals vitamin D. And so the feedback is, oh, you just need to get out in the sun a bit more. And then their cholesterol comes down. Or it might be their hormones are out of balance. We've got some hormonal imbalances going on here. Here's some action steps that you can take to help support those hormones a little bit better. And then their cholesterol comes back down. And so it's just about listening to what the body is saying with that information rather than working on this premise that the body is broken and we just need to medicate it for its brokenness.
So how do you address when someone's hormones are off? So I'm working with a group of people and many of them are several years into carnivore and we're seeing some kinks. And so for me, I actually went into perimenopause after being 10 months of carnivore.
Yeah.
And it hasn't gotten better. What kind of steps do people take? I mean, I'm working with someone, but
it's good information because I think pretty much every country now you can almost organize your own blood. So you can go and have a look at some of this stuff for yourself without necessarily going to a doctor. But when somebody's female hormones are out of balance, there's a couple of things that I'm looking at. One, fasting insulin, because if your fasting insulin is high, it's going to block your conversion of testosterone into estrogen. And so that's going to stop that conversion of you converting those hormones into your female hormones if that insulin is high. The next thing that I'm going to look at is things like DHEA. I'm going to look at your sex hormone, so your testosterone. I want to know what a woman's testosterone is. And then I'm going to look at another molecule called sex hormone binding globulin, because you might have great estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone levels, but if you've got really high sex hormone binding globulin, then those hormones aren't available because they're being bound by this globulin. And so we may need to do some work in regards to that. We may need to do some work in regards to DHEA, which is, a primary hormone that's coming from your adrenal glands. And so some of the things that I will tell people, number one way to actually help support a lot of those hormones for women is to have more orgasms. And so I always often say, get your husband in the room.
I like where you're going.
Because it releases a whole bunch of...
taking notes. More orgasms.
Yeah. And so sometimes I'll get husbands in the room and I'm like, this is your mission. And they love it. It's a bit of fun and it's bonding for them as well. But without that relationship and, whatever way people might want to choose to do that, you want to pick things that make you feel good. So things that make you laugh, do activities on a daily basis that make you smile, whether it's watching a comedy show or, I've got all these little videos, my sister sends them to me of people falling over and, we laugh but not laugh of people doing those things. Anything that's going to make you smile. You also want to really audit your exercise. So, for example, you don't want to do exercise that you have to push your way through. So my proviso with exercise is if you can sing and you can be joyful while you do it, that's perfect exercise for you. But if you are like, I can't sing through this is god awful, it's not the right exercise for you because it's going to be working in the opposite spirit of what you want to do. And the other thing that I generally am looking at with a lot of my clients is I'll get them to track things like their GKI, so their blood glucose ketones index, to see where are we at in that ratio of things. Like, are we getting your ketones up? Are we getting that glucose down? And do we need to do some experimentation to see what works in helping you do that transition? And for some people, especially if they've been chronically ill, like somebody who's got chronic fatigue or post-viral fatigue, for example, long COVID fits into that category, they can only do it for short bursts at a time, and then you need to give them a break. And then you do another short burst of intense ketones and give them another bit of a recovery break. And sometimes it's this little bit of a push, relax journey for them. The other thing for hormones is people are not often eating enough fat. So I'll usually tell, and sorry for your American viewers, but I usually will tell them, you need to eat a minimum of 200 grams of fat. So if somebody wants to do the conversion, please feel free to do that. But that's how much you need to eat on a daily basis for about 3 months for most people on average. So sometimes it's a bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less, but on average, it's around that 200 grams of fat to get enough fat going through to repair and rebuild the deficient hormones.
I have to look. Right? Oh, yeah. Grams?
Grams, yes.
7
I'm sure
grams.
someone on Google can do it.
Grams.
But
I
here
mean,
in
I think
Australia, it's
that's what
about,
we use too. We use grams. So is that like 2,000 calories? Do you guys use calories?
we do use calories. I don't know what it is off the top of my head in calories though, but it's about this much butter.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay. What do you tell people who need sleep? Because this is where I'm coming from here. And I think this actually kind of stems into the chronic illness thing. We call it chronic inflammatory response syndrome.
mhm,
Some people call it chronic fatigue. It's like the root of rheumatoid arthritis, some
yeah.
MS cases, a lot of the autoimmune stuff. And I don't sleep.
So
I mean, I do. I sleep, but I don't sleep. And I'm mouth taping and I've got the nose thing. And okay, I have a light on me, which is not cool. I get it. The circadian rhythm right now is not driving, but I usually don't do this. Yeah. Well, how do you typically start with the sleeping problem?
okay, so there's a number of different reasons why people are struggling with sleep. And the key thing is you've got to match the right support with the right reason. So, for example, somebody who's had a long-term history of not sleeping, they've got a habitual element of that as well as the biological element of that. And so our goal is to do as much as we can from the habitual thing, like we might do the mouth taping, we might do the set bedtimes, we might have the sleep hygiene stuff going on. Then we also have to do the biochemical stuff. And sometimes that might be that we might need to use something like melatonin or SAMe just to help to kick those things over. But again, if we're using those things, I want to backtrack that and go, do we have the MTHFR gene mutation that's coming into play here that's limiting your ability to make melatonin and serotonin and dopamine and all of those types of things? Do we need to look at your methylation pathways? And do we need to bring in some B vitamins or something like that to support those? Do we need to look at the adrenal story? Because a lot of women in particular have burnt out adrenals, where they've been in high chronic stress states for such a long period of time that your body does this thing. Like, think about it, when you go to sleep, adrenaline will always trump melatonin. Melatonin is our sleep hormone for our brain. It's the thing that helps us go off to sleep. But we will always come out of that with the introduction of adrenaline. Because if you're asleep at home and a burglar comes into your house and you hear a noise, you want to be able to wake up and fight and defend yourself against that. Now, it can take quite a bit of adrenaline to get you out of your deep sleep cycle if you're in the middle of it and you're nice and cozy and so on. And if you've got a lacking in adrenal sufficiency, for example, you've got low adrenal hormones, which is where you'll see things like your DHEA levels are low. If that's the case, your body knows it doesn't have enough to get you out of your sleep phase if you go into it nice and deeply. And so what it does is it stops you from getting into a nice deep sleep because there might be an emergency. There might be a burglar and it doesn't have enough resources to drag you out of that sleep to protect yourself and to protect your family. So it stops you from entering into it to start with. And so that comes into that space of that hormonal problem. So eating some fat before bed can be quite helpful for that. Making sure you're having enough fat throughout the day can be helpful for that. Checking things like your methylation pathways. I usually will get my clients to check things like their homocysteine levels. And our magic number that we're looking at is a 6. If your homocysteine is a 6, you're great. If your homocysteine is above a 6, so let's say it's 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe even higher, then that's telling me you don't have enough B vitamins. And we need very specific activated B vitamins to help you make more of the brain chemicals that allow you to relax and allow you to get into rest and digest and allow your sympathetic nervous system to like come on and take over and do all of that restorative stuff. If it's below a 6, then that tells me you don't have enough detoxing resources and you're pulling homocysteine down into detoxification. So then we need to go with that balance of adding in some NAC or some glutathione to help that process happen. And then, of course, the overall feedback is I'm probably going to get people to do an egg challenge where at least, 1 week for a month, for every month until it's really settled, I'm going to make you eat 10 eggs a day. You eat whatever else you like, but, for that 1 week, I want you to eat 10 eggs a day so that your fat's up nice and high. You've got lots of choline that's coming in. It's going to feed your brain, feed your neural pathways. It's got plenty of fat in it. It's going to feed those adrenals and actually really give you a bit of a boost. And 10 eggs a day is equivalent to about a low dose steroid. And so doing that for once a week, once a month is actually quite helpful in just giving people a bit more extra stuff that they need that they've been missing out on.
You are making, okay, can I tell you something? Honesty.
Go for it.
Are you ready? So in my carnivore journey, I really struggled, but not being carnivore, but getting to my goals. Like I really wanted to heal this SIRS and I really wanted to lose weight. And so I joined challenges. I did all the sardines. You're actually making me want to go eat a whole bunch of sardines because for me, sardines are very medicinal. I don't know if it's the calcium, the omegas, but with my chronic issues, when I eat sardines every single day, I feel so much better. But in the end, I did end up deciding to go low and slow with peptides. And people in our community are very anti-peptides. But I have to tell you, it's been life-changing for me. But so many of the things that you're saying are great additions to what I'm doing. And I don't know, have you looked into the peptide thing?
I personally have not gone down the pathway of peptides. I certainly prescribe them for patients, but I go more into, what are peptides made out of?
Lifestyle
They're made of
things.
amino acids. Yeah. And so I'm looking at how can we get that from a dietary perspective, because not everybody can access things like peptides. So my goal is to get as much access out to as much people as possible. And sometimes it's just a matter of transitioning. So I've mentioned the egg challenge, for example. Some people can't do chicken eggs, or they have to be really careful with where their eggs have come from. And so the best eggs to actually do for that is duck eggs and quail eggs. They're the least allergenic eggs that there actually are out there. And so duck eggs and quail eggs, you might need to change your quail eggs to do 3 times the amount of chicken eggs that you would normally do. Duck eggs, you might drop back a little bit, but those animals are least tampered with. You can have them in your backyard. Like you can have quails in your backyard. You keep them in a rabbit cage, right? And hatch your own eggs. They're really easy to take care of and look after. And so chicken eggs are often highly problematic for a lot of people because of what they're fed. And you can control that if you've got your own quails, for example, in your own backyard. You can control what they actually eat. But even if you are accessing duck eggs, like ducks aren't often given a lot of stuff that they don't normally eat in their own natural diet, whereas chickens are, because they're such a high production animal that, they're fed in ways that are going to increase their production, shorten their lifespan, and just get the most eggs out of them as quickly as possible, really. And some people don't have problems with that, but a large majority of people have. And sometimes it's just a matter of switching the resource that you get it from. So, for example, chicken meat tends to be highly problematic. When I've done allergy testing on people, 80% of people have a chicken or a chicken egg allergy, even if it's just a mild one that they don't have like an actual complete breakout of when they actually have it. It might build up and accumulate in their system. That's just switch your eggs to ducks or quails. Switch your meat to turkey or duck. Switch your animals to massively produced animals, and you'll often eliminate a lot of those problems that you might have had with other poultry or other poultry products. Same with, for some people, they might have problems with cows because of what they're being fed. Switch that to lamb. Most sheep are still eating grass. Goats are still eating grass. Like goats will eat anything. Their digestive system is designed to eat like trees and bits of stick and all sorts of other things. And so switching some of those proteins around can make a massive difference to somebody who's got SIRS, or somebody who's got some inflammatory issues. The other thing that I always remind people of is that, like, for me, I really think about my goal as a practitioner is to provide education. because I want you to think about it rather than just me tell you what to do. And the lymphatic system is the highway for the immune system, but it's also a highway for detoxification. Like, you know, we all talk about lymphatic massage and how good it is for helping you with detoxification. If your body is overloaded with toxins, part of the way your liver has to get rid of those toxins is to actually move it through the lymphatic system. So in the lymphatic system, it will then move it to other areas of your body to help get rid of those toxins. Well, your immune system and your detox system are kind of in the same pathway. And so I think about the immune system as like the ambulance that's trying to get to where it needs to go. But then if it's full of toxins, what you've got is a traffic jam. And then instead of that ambulance being able to go really fast to where it needs to go, it's got to weave in and out of cars to try and get there. And it really slows down the capacity of that immune system. And so that's one of the factors that comes into those inflammatory conditions, is that the immune system is really slowed down. And so it's learned this message that if I've got to get something through, instead of sending that one ambulance, I've got to send 10 ambulances to try and get something through this system to get it to where I need to go. And the real reverse engineering is we've got to reduce some of the lymphatic stress of removing some of those toxins that are hanging out in the lymphatic system. I hope that makes sense. I kind of jumped
the stress. Is it body work and
body work,
vibration plates and exercise and walking, or?
All of those things are fabulous. Lymphatic massage is great. Like, you know, we can all do a lymphatic massage in the shower every morning. You know, cop a feel of yourself. Give yourself a nice big lymphatic massage underneath your armpits, around your groin, back your knees, your arms. Do some dry skin brushing, getting in a sauna, or, you know, hot or cold. Women tend to do a little bit better with sweating than they do with freezing. And so, you know, those things help the lymphatic system. But the main key element there is you've got to get the liver moving so it doesn't have to pump as much through the lymphatic system for its dumping. You've got to support that liver and make sure that it's got everything that it actually needs to make all the detox pathways work. And then you've got to make sure you're eating enough fat for that liver to do the dumping into the digestive system versus pumping through the lymphatic system.
You are reminding me of so many things that I was doing along the way, but I got exhausted. But they're all medicine. My food source, I was getting fascia work done every week. I was eating a lot of sardines. I was doing a ton of walking, and I've done saunaing, but I don't do any of those things right now because I got so exhausted with it all. But those are medicinal. Now, I have a question. My group members, many of them have liver inflammation and kidney inflammation. How do we calm that down?
Okay, so the kidney inflammation, I usually will get my clients to start on a sugar-free sugar-free, what is it called? Peptin. No, hang on. It's going to take me a second. It's right in the back of my brain. It's come from apples.
Oh, pectin. Pectin.
Yes, I'm like, it's right there. What are you called? Sugar-free pectin. You know, before I have people start carnivore, so let's say you were a brand new client, you came into my office and I said, I think you should start carnivore. The very first thing I'm actually going to get you to do is a 3 to 6 day apple challenge, where you have to eat 6 apples a day for either 3 or 6 days, depending on whether you've got kidney stones, whether you've got any joint stones, whether you've got any gallstones. That will, like, if you've got any of those types of symptoms, I'm going to make you do it for 6 days rather than 3 days. And that's because those green sort of Granny Smith type apples are really high in pectin. Now, if somebody's come to me and they've already started carnivore, then I skip that step and I go straight to let's supplement with some sugar-free pectin, because that's going to soften all of those stones and make them movable and malleable, because that's often the problem. Like if you Googled, say, either carnivore or keto, one of the problems that would come up would be people would say that they lost their gallbladder, or they had a gallbladder attack, and all of that type of stuff. And what they're missing is that the diet didn't create the gallstones. The gallstones were already there. The diet didn't create the kidney stones. They were already there. Those things were already there. But what you've done is you've increased your fat, and now you've allowed mobilization of those stones without any softening of those stones. And so the softening process first makes everything nice and movable and malleable. And then you can start to push those things out of things like the liver and the gallbladder. You can push them out of the kidneys. You can push them out of the joints when people have got arthritic joints, for example. Just helps to make those things soft again so that they're movable by the body. The other thing is things like castor oil is fabulous. And I know one of the things you said is like, I've done a lot of these things, but I've been really tired. And the key thing is, the goal is to work out what's going to work best for you. Like people will message me and say, what's the best sauna to have? And I could say, well, this one's going to be better than this one. But you know what the best sauna is? The one that you can use and you'll pack away, like, so a sauna blanket. While there might be some EMFs that come through that sauna blanket, if it means you use the blanket rather than I don't use it, then you're mitigating some of the benefits. If you don't use it, like, if you've got a big, massive sauna that you don't use, or you have to set up and take down every time, you're not going to use it as often. So the best thing that will work is what will actually work for you, which is going to be different to everyone based on your lifestyle, your house size, your resources, all of that type of stuff. And it's about finding the things that work well and easy for you. And that's going to be different for everyone.
What about the liver?
So the best thing for liver is to eat liver. So cod liver, if you can get it in a can, you can usually buy it from Amazon. It's got every nutrient that your liver needs to actually replace and restore itself. Lamb liver is the next best one. Beef is the next best, or oxen is the next best one. And then, of course, chicken and duck and so on. You can do those. They don't have quite as much of a match for our liver and our nutritional needs for that. But that's a primary one. For the kidneys, it's eat kidneys. Like if you've got an organ area in your body that's particularly struggling, eat the organ that you're struggling with, because that will help. And one of the things that I generally will tell people when it comes to eating liver in particular is it's better if you eat it than if you take it as a capsule. Now, if you're not going to eat it and the only way to get it into you is via a capsule, by all means do that. But if you eat liver, what will happen is you get a feedback loop that takes place. And as you eat it, it'll get to the point where it'll start to taste metallic when your body has had enough of it. And so that's your feedback loop. If it's not tasting metallic, you still need more of it. If it starts to taste metallic really quickly, you only need a little bit of it. And use your tongue as your guide to how much you actually need. Because again, this week you might only need a little bit because you don't have a very stressful week. Next week, kids are going back to school, everything else is happening, life is completely stressful. You might need more of it next week.
This might be the best Lioness Lifestyle episode ever. So in the peptide world, there are these things called bioregulators, and they are peptides derived from animal body parts. So if you want to heal your brain, you eat peptides from an animal brain. But why not just eat it to begin with, instead of isolating peptides and taking something that's processed? This is intriguing. It's amazing.
The other part of that for me is that pretty much everything's going to have something in it. So, you might get, for example, dehydrated liver that has just got dehydrated liver and gelatin capsules. But most of your other supplements have something called a stabilizer in it or a filler in it, because they need to pack it so that, it's stable, it's shelf stable, it, is available, and they can make it last as long as they possibly can. So it's got maybe some preservatives and things like that in it. And so we don't always want those things. And the other thing that I always think about is that we only know what we currently know. We think we are the most intelligent thing there is on the planet Earth, and maybe we are, but we still only know what we currently know. Like there was once upon a time when we didn't know atoms existed. There was once upon a time that we didn't know that molecules existed. There was once upon a time that we didn't know that, that whatever it is that we're taking, like nanoparticles, for example, we're now only just starting to learn in the field of homeopathy that we can measure the nanoparticles in that water of homeopathy, because now we've got magnifying glasses that help us to measure that. We've got technology that helps us to do that. But once upon a time, we didn't know that. And we only know what we currently know. And so we don't know what are the cofactors that are needed for us to be able to fully absorb those peptides or those nutrients or this thing or that thing. And that's where I love looking at food primarily as the injector of our nutrients, because I don't need to know, does it have this, that, in it? I know it's already got it in it. I know that liver has vitamin C in it, so it's also going to help you absorb iron, which is also in it. And so I know that, like, in those packages, those things that I need are already there.
It's also a spectrum of things where if we isolate something, you're only getting the isolated thing. But if you eat like desiccated thyroid, you get the whole thyroid.
Yeah.
You get a more holistic, full support.
Yeah.
Okay, we
Exactly.
do have a question. My doctor tried to get me on a statin, and super pressured me. My cholesterol is 207. I said no, of course. What are your thoughts?
So my thoughts are, remember, look at the other markers. Look at, what are your triglycerides doing? Are your triglycerides nice and low? Is your HDL nice and high? If those two markers are good, then the LDL, which is most likely the cholesterol that they're going to be referring to, most blood tests don't actually even test that. Like, most labs just guess it. So they do the math and they do an equation and they work out what that number is. They haven't actually tested it because it takes days and it's expensive. So they just don't bother and they give you the estimated. So that 207 is probably not actually exactly what your cholesterol levels even are. And the other part of that is that cholesterol is made up of different particles. You've got small, dense, you've got large and fluffy, and they do slightly different things. And so the key is not to look at one blood marker and go, this is a terrible thing, but to look at the whole story as a whole picture. Like, when we look at the 5 top markers for heart disease, LDL cholesterol is not even one of them. Like, it doesn't even meet the top 5 indicators for heart disease, but that's the number one thing that is looked at when it comes to putting people on statins, which is, going to reduce the fat that's in your brain, most likely lead you to dementia, and, undernourish you in a whole bunch of other ways that your body is telling you actually need.
Amazing. Okay. You are honestly absolutely fabulous. I would like to see if I'm capable of sharing your social media. I have to tell you a little funny thing, which is have been struggling so much with my autoimmune that I have brain fog, and I have been banned from button pushing because on several occasions, instead of hitting the button I was supposed to, I hit end live stream. That happened like multiple times, but I think I can do this. So let me see here. Screen share. Instagram. Is Instagram your main thing?
Instagram, Facebook is predominantly my main thing. I will share on Instagram as well, so I'm there. But if you really need to catch me, Facebook is where you'll catch me. Yeah.
Okay. Let me see if I can look up your Facebook really quick. Facebook, because if that's where the conversation is happening, I have to subscribe over there too.
Well, Facebook is where I just share everything. So you'll get my kids having birthdays. You'll get my exam results for my anatomy and physiology exams that I'm doing at the moment. You'll see everything along with what I'm eating and all that sort of fun stuff as well.
But we love to get the humans who are inspiring us. The real human stuff. Wow, look at you. This is a big deal. 21 to 5.6.
Yeah.
Christina, this is remarkable. This is a miracle.
In my space, it's one of those things that the medical team will say, you can't fix it. It's lifelong. You're going to have it forever. You can't undo it. And my goal is to provide the evidence that that's a lie. Like, that's my goal in life, is to provide the evidence that that's a lie. And part of the reason that I'm moving into the medical system and, working on my Doctor of Medicine sort of titles and all of that sort of fun stuff is so that I can maybe influence my fellow practitioners that are coming up through those ranks as well and go, that's nice that they say that, but here's the actual truth. And I often will do that in some of like my online classes. I will ask questions, or I'll put in questions that lead people to think about more solutions than what they previously thought about. And so it's kind of fun to stretch. It also feels like I'm a bit of a spy in that space as well. Because there's some things that I just put my head down and like, I just need to shut up and turn my camera off for this one. But being able to go, okay, what is a strategic question that I could ask that might actually help people to think outside of the box that we're being taught right now? So we will see. Maybe I'll get undone at one stage, but hopefully I'll get all the way through.
I love it. I'm going to be telling my whole group to come follow you. Of course, everyone who's watching this episode, please go out and like you and subscribe and follow. I mean, it's obviously you're just a gold mine for lifestyle changes that could really make a difference. I really appreciate that you would come on to our show. Again, I'm so sorry that the other two didn't make it. They were really excited about this. So is there anything else coming up you'd like to share?
So what is coming up, probably I'm still landing on a date, but it's either going to be the end of May or June, where I'll do a round of what I call the quest. And the quest is really a journey of understanding your body when it comes to hyperinsulinemia. So if insulin is one of your problems and you've been struggling to get that down, it's a challenge where what we do for the first 6 weeks is
Please.
What we do for the first 6 weeks in that is we test out different style eating fasts. And then the next part of that is we test out like what works better for you on a mental health perspective. Like for some people, alternate days sardine fasting, for example, can be quite helpful rather than 1, 2, or 3 days back together. And we play around with those.
You do the sardines.
We do the sardines. We also do fat fasting, and we do, you know, different types of other things as well. And the key thing is like identifying what works for your body, because having taken hundreds of people through that approach, I can tell you there is no one answer. There's no this works for everybody. Everybody is different. And people will be different at different stages of their healing as well. So things that worked for the first time people did the quest with me didn't work the second time. They had something else that worked better for them in that phase because their body had transitioned to a new area of healing by that point. And the other thing that we talk a lot about is the mental mindset, because this is a journey. It's not a destination for most of us. Like, yes, we'd love to get to a place where we're healthy and well, and we don't have to think about any of these things. But really to get there, you have to also do the mind work. You have to unpack like your relationship with food. What led you to where you currently are? How do birthdays look like for you in the future? How do you transition this mindset of like, I've had a really crap day and I deserve something sweet? And what are some of the stories in that? Like, you know, for people with diabetes, a lot of them, when I unpack their emotional side of their story, you'll see that they've lacked sweetness in their life. So their relationships in their lives aren't sweet. And so what they've done is they've made up for the lack of sweet in relationships and friendships and support and friends and all of that type of stuff. They've put the sweet into their body rather than receiving it through their lifestyle. The same with people who have got a high need for adventure but can't be adventurous because, you know, their life is not actually supporting that. Then they generally really struggle to have just a steak on their plate because they're like, but where's my adventure? Where's my excitement? And so we have to work on making their life more adventurous rather than their plate being more adventurous. And unpacking, like, you know, when it comes to hyperinsulinemia, which is high insulin, basically break that down. Hyper, too much, you know, insulin, and it's in your blood. So too much insulin being the insulator of our bodies, which means that we feel unsafe. So we have to insulate ourselves, and it's affecting our lifeblood. And so that's affecting your life. So when we break that down and we go, well, what are the things in your life that make you feel you need to insulate, that make you feel you're not safe? And how can we work on those, and how can we help you move through those emotional elements? Because if we just take care of the biochemistry and we don't fix the mental stuff, you're just going to end up back there. You're going to sabotage yourself, and you're going to keep spinning the wheel of like yo-yo dieting and doing all of that type of stuff because you haven't resolved why you did it in the first place.
The mental thing you helped me realize is perhaps I am not getting into deep sleep, because you had mentioned something about the body not having energy to come out of the deep. Is I feel like I don't do enough, and I never feel like I did enough, and there's more. And if I'm resting, it's like, here you go, not getting all the work that you need to get done. You're letting everybody down. And so I go to bed with that same thing. I work till the very minute that I go to sleep. And maybe what I need to do is start a routine where I stop working.
That's part of it. Another part of it would be that I would ask you the question of like, who told you you weren't enough? Who taught you in your life that you weren't enough? Because when you were born into this world, you are lovable. You are enough. You are more than enough the moment you entered in this world. And the only thing that's changed between now and then is that somebody taught you that you weren't, and that you have to achieve your enoughness. And so that would be part of the unpacking of that journey, is like actually reclaiming your enoughness. Me just existing is enough. And so for me, that part of the gift that I gave myself, so it was 11 years ago, my daughter's about to turn 12, so it was nearly 12 years ago. I died in the birth of my last baby. They pumped all this blood into me. They restarted my heart. They did all these things and brought me back. And walking out of that journey was one of those moments of realizing that I had spent the first half of my life hiding. Like, I was the mum that didn't take photos of herself, that hid behind her kids in the photos, that did all of that type of stuff because I didn't like the way that I looked. And I remember sitting there one day on the chair, because like I'd lost my blood, my own body blood was gone 16 times over. So I'd had donated blood about 16 times. So there was none of my own blood was actually in my body at that point in time. And I was really weak and frail. And I remember sitting there thinking that this is a moment that my kids could have been planning my funeral. And I was thinking about like the slideshows that get shown at funerals that make you all sad and so on. I'm like, what would they put up online? Because there's no real photos of just me. There's photos of me behind everybody and in the background, or me taking the photos and avoiding being seen. And I made a commitment that day that I was going to work out how to get in front of the photos and to leave behind a legacy of photos for my kids, so that now they've got a plethora of photos. If you look at my Instagram, there's way too many photos for them to pick for they'd have to hold days and weeks of like slideshows to show all the photos. But I made a commitment, one, that I would learn to take photos that I really love, and I would learn to be happy in those photos. And the other one was to give myself the gift of recognizing that I'm amazing. I'm absolutely amazing, wonderful, magnificent. Like, I have been made to be this beautifully amazing person. And it's a real privilege to spend time with me. Like, I had to give myself that gift of recognizing that it was a real privilege to spend time with me.
I think you're just a gold mine of, it is amazing.
Well, the key part of that is that, you know, some people will hear that and they go, oh, that's really arrogant. I'm like, no. You miss that. For me to really recognize how much it is an actual honor for me to be here and with you, I first have to recognize how much of an honor it is to be with me. And when I recognize that, I can actually really, really recognize that it's actually a real privilege for me to be in this space with you and to be able to have these conversations with you. That's a real privilege that I get to do this in my life. And it's out of the outpouring of understanding who I am that I'm then able to give that to other people.
I just love this. I forgot to tell you one more funny fact, and then I'm going to let you go. And that is that I had a quail farm with 600 quail.
I love it.
The secret is, though, the very disappointing thing is that it's difficult to feed quail in America a natural diet that's grain-free, because the protein needs to be so high. And so it's the diet of quail in America is not that great unless you're doing the backyard thing and you're letting them
Which is what we had our quails in the backyard along with our rabbits. So we were raising our rabbits.
I had rabbits too.
And we had the RSPCA, which is like the animal protection people, come over and check out our backyard, because they were like, there's stuff going on here. We want to make sure that it's safe. And we would have like a cage with our rabbits and our quails in it. And the quails and the rabbits, they all hung out together and cuddled up. It was so cute.
Really?
Yeah, they loved it. And so
the other thing about quail is they get stressed out so easy. You got to be very careful with their environment. But I can imagine, a more natural environment would be great for them. But you put your quail in with the rabbits?
Yeah, the quail would curl, because our rabbits were like Angora rabbits, so they would curl up with the rabbits inside their fur and things like that, and they would keep them warm over winter and all that sort of fun stuff. And yeah, so we had rabbit meat and we had quail meat. As well as eggs and
we had lots of quail meat because all the men were getting.
It was so sad because they look so pretty though, and that was always the hard part.
And you just want to cuddle them, and they're like, "Please don't do this! Oh my gosh, I'm gonna die!" They don't want to cuddle you. They don't want to cuddle human.
We hatched ours from eggs, and so they had us cuddling them from day one.
I
So they
wonder
would
if you
run
had a
up to
different
us, and we're
breed.
used
I
to
had
it.
Paternix. I
I
had
don't know
Paternix.
what we had.
I had the Japanese
Um,
quail.
I wanted to get some of the Japanese quail. We did have some Japanese quail, but again, we hatched them from eggs. So they always had us holding them from day one. And like, you know, I'm an expert in quail leg therapy for when they've got splayed legs.
Yes, me too. Oh my gosh, I could talk with you all day and night. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Next week, we are having a roundtable discussion with the three of us ladies that are usually the hosts. Please tune in. But again, please go out to Christina's social media, follow, like, subscribe. And thank you everyone for tuning in. It's so weird not having Cristie saying all these words, but I'm giving it a try. I appreciate you guys being here. And I hope you have a great night.